Hello, beautiful being. The greatest defense that anyone can have against a narcissist is emotional regulation. Because that is what they desire more than anything, is to control how you feel and to control your emotions, because emotions are such a powerful force within a person. Think about it, like when we feel angry, sad, confused, frustrated, worried, if we allow our emotions to overtake us, that is our world. A person who is consumed by frustration, that's their world. A person who is consumed with anger, that's their world. A person who's consumed with sadness, that's their world. So a narcissist knows that their desire for control is, from their perspective, best done through a person's emotions, because it literally is a way of consuming a person and controlling their existence, at least for whatever duration of time they're in that mood or that state. Now, the reason why a narcissist feels the need to control is so desperate. These are beings who do not know how to control their own emotions. They have an immense amount of pain that they feel, an immense amount of inferiority and insecurity that they feel within themselves, that they have felt since a very young age, and typically an immense amount of trauma that they never learned how to process. And so, unlike some individuals who turn on themselves, they feel that pain, they feel that frustration, that anger, that sadness due to a trauma, due to pain that they experienced, and they turn on themselves and self-harm in some way. Narcissists try to create that same pain that they're not able to process within themselves. They want to create that same pain for others around them. That's why they are so obsessed with the people that they are trying to attract into their world or trying to control and manipulate, is because they have such an unhealthy attachment to those beings. Because in a way, they feel like that person belongs to them, because it's almost as if that's their person to take their emotions out on, their pain out on. How else are they going to be okay if they don't have this girlfriend, this boyfriend, this husband, this wife, this lover, this friend, this coworker, this employee to take their pain out on? They feel like they can't be okay without people in their life that they can hurt, that they can harm, because they're not going to harm themselves. They're not going to take their pain out that way, which I'm not suggesting that. That is a very dark path as well. And on any spiritual path, the goal is to love ourselves, right? So self-harm is not the answer, but harming others is not either. And so that is why narcissists are so insistent on keeping the people that they have targeted to use in order to take their pain out on, keeping those people in their world. That's why they stalk. That's why they obsess. That's why they very rarely give up once they target someone. They must conquer that person. They must achieve their goal of bringing harm to them in some way. Now, for those of us who have been targeted by narcissists or who have experienced them, it's not always that they target us. Sometimes we're in a family with a narcissist, or, sometimes we marry into a family full of narcissists, but it just depends on the situation. However it is that you may have encountered a narcissist, maybe you have a narcissistic boss, or maybe you have coworkers who are narcissists, or neighbors who are narcissists. However it is that you've encountered them, if you identify as an empathic being who minds your business and you have encountered a narcissist, it is our responsibility, if we want to avoid these people, these narcissists, it's our responsibility to do the work that we need to do in order to regulate our emotions. Because otherwise, if a narcissist feels that they are able to control how you feel about yourself and about your life, oh, that's the max for them. And it's really, really sad, because even the max is not satisfying. That's why they keep doing it, because it's like a false high. It's like they never get satisfied. They are never happy with seeing you or anyone else in pain over them, because it's so fleeting, that pleasure that they get from that, because they're not truly processing their own pain. They're just trying to relieve themselves of that pain that they felt for years by causing temporary pain for someone else. Or in some cases, they try to cause permanent pain, but it doesn't matter. It never satisfies them, which is why they never heal. So it's one thing for us to say, I'm just not going to let the narcissist know that they've gotten to me. But if you encounter this person, you see them in the workplace every day, or you see them in your neighborhood every other day, or you see them at a family function 4 times a year, or whatever. That's a lot better, right? But that's a lot less frequent, but it still is going to eventually get on our nerves if we are constantly seeing this person. So it doesn't work just to say, I'm not going to let the narcissist know that they've gotten to me. And then once I leave the event, or once I get in my car and I'm headed home from work, I'm just going to scream. Like, that's not sustainable. So the work that we have to do is to truly learn how to regulate our emotions. And in order to do that, we have to heal ourselves. That's why the spiritual path is so amazing, because what we find is that as we heal, as we love ourselves, as we understand who we are, know thyself, to me really is the most important thing to do on the spiritual path. Because when you know yourself, there's no narcissist or anyone else on this earth who can tell you that you are something that you are not. They can tell you, but you're not going to believe it because you know it's a lie. Knowing yourself allows you to know truth from fiction, especially when it comes to yourself, which is, at the end of the day, all that matters. And so, knowing who we are, choosing to love ourselves, choosing to learn how to process our pain. A lot of times narcissists target people who are the empaths, who experience trauma, who have turned their pain on themselves. But that's a part of learning how to regulate our emotions so that we don't have to harm ourselves, so that we can choose to love ourselves no matter what we're feeling in the moment, whether it's frustration or anger or sadness. And also realizing that emotions are just emotions. Like, I can watch a movie and it can inspire a certain emotion within me. It's just a movie, though. Just because I feel sadness because of a sad scene in a movie, that doesn't mean that I am sad. So there's this recognition of the fact that we are not our emotions. Emotions, and usually feelings, sometimes emotions, can be a signal regarding something that's going on either within us or around us. But even emotions can be projections from outside forces, external forces. So realizing the difference between a feeling that's intuitively charged from within, from the divine, from our divine energy, versus an emotion that comes from something that I observe from outside of myself. That's really important. Also, choosing to be patient with ourselves, choosing to love ourselves through a situation instead of turning against ourselves, which a lot of times we learn to do because of the environment that we grew up in, that told us to abandon ourselves or that trained us. If it didn't tell us explicitly to turn against ourselves, it's what we ended up doing because we weren't guided and taught to do otherwise. So when we encounter a narcissist, in a way, it can be like the most inspiring event because it's an opportunity to choose without any hesitation to love ourselves. Because all of a sudden we see that there's this being who is coming for blood. And we either are going to choose what they're selling us, which is destruction, endings, pain, suffering, or we're going to choose ourselves, love, healing, and peace. And when narcissistic beings try to make us turn on ourselves, try to get in the driver's seat of our emotional state and control what we're feeling, control our world, make us frustrated, sad, depressed, and they see that, oh, this one loves themselves way too much. They're not buying it. What? You mean I can't dump my pain on them? You mean I can't play games with their life in order for me to get 2 seconds of satisfaction? Damn. You know? And when a narcissist notices that, I'm just going to be real with you. They do put you on a pedestal, and they are envious and they hate, but at the very least, they know that they can never bring an ending to you. And it does frustrate them. It does make them feel like a failure. So in a way, it's a dose of reality for them to see that they can't control your emotions. And it makes them extremely frustrated and obsessed sometimes. But at some point, they are forced to give up, because even if they stalk or obsess, that is not a lifestyle that anyone is able to sustain forever. And so that's when justice comes into play. That's when divine balance comes into play. And it's always triggered by your choice to love yourself. Non-stop. No matter what. I hope this was helpful. I love you. I wish you peace, joy, and so many blessings. Take care.